Welcome back to the Jumpify Labs podcast, the show for founders who want growth without the guesswork. Here we talk about the systems that drive predictable growth. And today's guest believes some of the common advice in the coaching industry is actually the very thing holding coaches back. Certifications, pricing pages, even how most coaches are marketing themselves. Jaimie Skultety helps coaches stop guessing, stop commoditizing, and start building businesses that actually convert. Jaimie, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much, Jay. Great to be here.
The pleasure's all mine. Let's kick things off, Jaimie. So, what originally pulled you into the coaching and the online business space?
Yeah, so I started in 2009, and my business, I was not a coach back then. I was actually a virtual assistant. So I found myself, though, becoming more of a marketing expert and not being a virtual assistant, trying to grow that business. And I really struggled for like 4.5 years in that business. So found myself spending my days spinning my wheels, trying to, pick up on the latest marketing tactic and free tips and all those kind of webinars and you name it. And I really struggled with the idea of what I call a minimum viable audience, or that's a term that Seth Godin uses. I want to make sure he gets credit for that. But really ideal client avatar, I really struggled with that because I felt like that was limiting me. I felt like I want to serve anybody that has a pulse and a credit card. I can help anybody, right? And I actually found that that was what was holding me back the most. As a virtual assistant, though, I was supporting coaches. So I was a supporting role there, but I was actually learning how to market my business. And so I was actually helping my clients who were coaches to effectively market their business. So the things I was learning, I was implementing for myself. And I said, why don't I implement this for you? My clients started making more money. And over the years, I got really burnt out on kind of doing all the work for people. And so I stepped into being a coach. Let me teach what needs to get done and how to do it effectively. And so that's kind of my story as to how I got into the space. So I've walked the journey and I know what other coaches go through because they're like me. They're just like, I want to be a coach. And I find myself spending my days spinning my wheels in marketing. And that's not what I was put on the earth to do.
That's such a cool playground or a sandbox for you to have learned as well as applying in real time so you could see the actual real time effects. When you are working with a lot of coaches though, what are some of the patterns that you started noticing in the early stages?
So a lot of coaches, I love that you touched on the certification component and the commoditizing of that, because so many coaches think I have to be certified and I have to lead with that. I have to put that on my LinkedIn profile, and people have to believe that I have that credibility because I've invested in myself. And listen, I wouldn't talk somebody out of getting certified if that's the path you want to walk. By all means, you could and you should, and it's not a bad thing to do it. So I don't want to suggest that you made a mistake by doing it, or if you're thinking about doing it, don't. But if you think that's going to make you successful, it actually could, and I'm careful with this, it could hold you back in a way. And you talk about the commodity piece because let's just say, let's just say you're Tony Robbins certified. I'll just use him as the example. So then people start to look for other Tony Robbins certified coaches. How can I get a better price? Who's the cheapest Tony Robbins coach that I can hire? And so it's not helping you to stand out. What's going to help you to stand out is a really clear offer, and who you're offering that to has to be super clear. So the certification is kind of the biggest mistake I see people making, is that they're leading with that. I think it's fine. I always say people don't really care about like your master's degree or your certification or all of your, accolades. That's all fine. I say that kind of put that at the bottom of your LinkedIn profile, kind of as a footnote, if you will. But it's not the thing that's going to get somebody to make a decision to work with you.
Absolutely, I agree 100%, especially because if you are branding yourself and leading with that you are XYZ certified, you actually put yourself in the sea of sameness in the same bucket with all these other people. Absolutely. People would start naturally looking for other people similar to you and just price shop. Because at the end of the day, a lot of the decision is based on the money factor, whether we like it or not. Okay, so why do you feel that many capable coaches are struggling despite having the strongest intentions? Yes, they are maybe doing the certification thing, but what other things come to mind? Because one thing that comes to my mind is, yes, they have well intentions, but marketing in itself is this whole other monster that we don't have formal training. It's also something that we also have to learn. But what are your thoughts having worked with so many people?
Yeah. So I see so many people that I work with come to me after having like been through every other like coaching program. They're investing in the shiny tactics. And, I always say that you can get pieces of the puzzle by doing that. And I'm just going to, not to kind of self promote here, but I feel like what I've put together is kind of like and people tell me this all the time. I've got the whole big picture puzzle because there's a lot of things to understand. So you might invest in one little tactic. So what I'm trying to say is that you do spend your time kind of building that thing. It's like a monster. It's always finding just that like $27 download or the free download. And I'm going to build my business based on this like cheap little thing that's going to, give me one little piece of the puzzle. And so people are kind of, by the time they come to me, they're exhausted. They're like, I don't want to do another coaching program. I've been through them all, and none of them work. And I know because I've been in those programs. I've done that all myself. I've invested heavily. I've invested lots of money into coaches and programs and the downloads and all of that. But if you want to spend your days being a marketer and not just really get to the heart of the matter, right? It's the clarity piece that's missing usually. It's I help men or I help women. It's not a target market to help 50% of the population. So it's that clarity piece that I find is missing. And people think I help men or I help women and I'm going to download this free thing and I'm going to make that work. And ultimately they find themselves still struggling because they're not clear on who they help and what they offer. They're not a specialist in anything. They're more of a generalist. That's been
Hmm.
overall overarching all of the people that I've met with. I don't want to say all, but many of them are stuck in that space of just, I want to help anybody that will pay me.
Yeah, I got you. Now, Jamie, I want to give you the opportunity to share some of the transformations that your best clients have experienced. What's one that comes top of mind?
Yeah. So, I mean, I can give you many examples, but I'll give you one. I maybe should change a name. I don't want to give out somebody's name, but so one of the things that I teach is how to do outreach on LinkedIn, especially. Because I think for every coach, that is your best playground. So, those of you who are using, Facebook, TikTok, Instagram, I'm not saying you shouldn't be there, but if I think that you could actually really get very focused on one platform, it should be LinkedIn. That's where people are maybe looking for coaching, right? I think that people on all those other platforms are just kind of like, I'm not really looking to be sold, right? And LinkedIn, I'm not saying you should go there and sell, but to answer your question, I help people with doing the outreach and messaging, right? And so how to effectively connect with somebody and not to go selling, but to build a relationship, right? And so several of my clients, I've been able to help them with that piece of, growing their audience, building that relationship and being a beacon for people and just connecting and being, that helpful resource. And so many of my clients are able to grow their audience and get more clients because of that outreach. And so I'll give you one example. My client who came to me and said, I want to be a life coach for men. And I said, great. Okay. So what were you doing before you were a coach? And he said he was a product manager for, I won't name the software company. He told me what it was, but I'll say for a software company. So I proposed that to him. Why don't we focus on product managers in the software industry? Because you've walked their shoes, you understand what they've been through. And that was what made the big change for him. Instead of just, I'm a life coach for men, it was very, very specific. And guess what? He's no longer just a life coach for men. He is a career coach for product managers in the software industry. And he has a very successful business now doing that. So, and
Wow.
I have many examples of that. So it's getting really, really distilled down into who you help and what you offer that will make the difference. And it's usually somewhere in your own history. If I can just kind of highlight that, it's usually a path that you've walked. It's not just picking something out of thin air and saying, I'm just going to coach anybody on anything. I get that a lot.
Yeah, and you end up being jack of all trades, master of none. And clarity often is the first milestone, right? Because
Yeah.
once you have that clarity, as you mentioned a few times already, you are trying to serve everyone, you effectively serve no one. And that ICP, defining the person you're actually serving, is going to be a big mover as far as clarity in your marketing, your messaging, and the whole shebang. Okay, so let's move to the certifications. Oh, actually, not certifications, but something you mentioned as well before, the pricing models. Now, a lot of people they like being able to price shop, as we've already kind of discussed. When you have your pricing visible, it also acts like often a roadblock. So, what are your thoughts around that topic?
So I am not a fan of pricing by the hour as a coach. So many people I speak with, I say, what do you charge? Oh, I charge this amount. X amount of dollars per hour and they get 6 sessions with me. And people are not buying sessions, they're buying transformation. They're not buying hours. That doesn't speak to anything that they really want. And so they're stuck on that. Well, how many hours is it going to take you to help me? And I talk to coaches who are also like, kind of, well, I don't know, I'll work with them 6 sessions. And if we need to go more, we will. What I help my clients to do is create a roadmap for what they're doing. So typically it's 3 phases, it's 9 steps, it's a journey, right? And I help them build all the steps beneath those steps. And it's a visual. So when you're meeting with somebody, let's say in a Zoom meeting, you show them, this is the journey I'm going to take you on, and this is what it's going to cost, right? And it's a high value, it's a high touch process, and it's priced accordingly. And it's one price. So it's one offer, it's one audience, one offer, one way of working with me. So many coaches have, they have 20 different models. They have, and it's all on their website. I've got this program and I've got this thing and I've got hours. And if you want to do, a la carte, and if you and it's just too many, confused mind never buys, as they say, right? So having too many choices is going to limit your chances of success. Really. I work with people one way. Right. And I get that question all the time. Well, are there any other ways I can work with you? Well, there's something you can do after we work together in this initial thing. But this is my specialty. This is how I'm going to take you from point A of struggle to point B of, buttoned up and moving through a coaching business that feels aligned and authentic and, is really going to have you show up in that way for your clients.
Yeah, I really like how you mentioned that you have 3 phases, 9 steps. I'm assuming each phase has 3 of those steps, so it's
That's
like
right.
very nice, and you have a visual. I'm already starting to visualize a little bit like a
Like
almost
an
like
S
a
curve. Yes,
well, yeah,
that's
anyway,
exactly right.
describe my visual thinking, but
That's beautiful.
it sounds like you have your at least your presentation very ironed out, and it makes things so much easier as well when you're doing just one thing instead of having to change your fulfillment style every single time you onboard someone new. Jaimie, let's talk a little bit about AI because you're doing some really cool and fun things with AI. How has AI changed what's possible for your small business?
Oh, in so many ways. I'm like, how did we live without it before? First of all, it really, I mean, for me personally, in how I coach people, is I've trained my AI, and it's chat, right? I've created custom GPTs as well, but I've trained it to understand how I coach. Like I've uploaded my program and all the nuances of that. And so when my clients submit their homework to me, I'm able to run it through chat. Like I have my own perspective and I will share that with my clients. And I tell my clients, I've run this through chat. Chat understands how I coach. And so it's given feedback that I agree with. Like I wouldn't send them something that I go, that's completely off base. But I always say, this was given by chat because it understands how I coach. And I'm completely in agreement with it. So that's helped in the homework sense. It's also really helped me to kind of speed up my responses to people. So when I get questions like on LinkedIn, I have a lot of different conversations going all the time. And so I know how I would respond, but it just helps me to like do it a little faster, more succinct, more concise, and get to the point and just be very clear on what I want to say. So it's helped me in the communication. I've also started to use it, and I'm just dabbling in it now, but where when somebody books a call with me, that they will get like an AI outreach call to kind of pre-qualify them, if you will, to understand what they need. And I feel like it helps them to get clear on why they're meeting with me, right? They've booked the call, and now let's make sure that this is going to be a fit for both of us before we actually step into that call. So I really like that concept, and I'm just dabbling in it now, so I can't tell you how it's working yet.
Yeah. Okay. So the voice receptionist or the voice outreach where it just is a little prequel, gathers information, so you're more prepared on the actual call.
Yeah.
That's very cool.
Yeah.
Yeah. So with a lot of coaches using AI now as well, and I'm sure a lot of your clients are doing the same thing. Maybe what's one thing that they're misusing or maybe underusing AI today? Because you're using it as well in a lot of your messaging, but what's a potential way that they're misusing or underusing AI?
Well, I wouldn't say it has to be AI necessarily, but where I do see coaches kind of lacking is in the outreach. Like, for example, I look at their profile and I'll see how many followers and how many connections they have. I see them posting and they're trying, and they come to my call saying, I'm posting every day and I don't, and nobody's doing anything. And I say, well, okay, you only have 300 connections or maybe 150 nobody's seeing your posts. right? And so you've got to be doing outreach. You've got to be growing your audience. So if you think just posting is going to just on its own serve you, it's not, sadly. Sadly, you've got to invite people to visit your content. To do that, you have to meet new people. So you have to be okay with that. Now, you can use AI, you can use some automation tools. I teach all of that. And I have a process that once they've completed with their initial program with me, I offer to help them with doing outreach because that is the key. If you just, like I said, if you just have a small audience, that's the only people who will ever potentially see your stuff. And if they're not online when you post, that post is lost. It's gone. So there are ways of, keeping your content sticky and, always having it be there, but you have to drive people to it or they won't see it. And that's part of the outreach that I teach is how to do that effectively.
And I often say too is one DM is worth 10 posts because you can post 10 times, and if no one's the right audience, as you mentioned, if you don't have the right amount of volume as far as people that can potentially see, or if they're a lot of times on LinkedIn, we just kind of assume all these posts are AI anyway. So we just oftentimes just scroll through, but we're always looking at our DMs. I mean, I am. I know, I assume most people are. But as far as the feed itself,
Yeah.
yeah, I don't know. I don't have
Yeah.
the data, but it's my own behavior. I'm not scrolling through there that much. Jamie, what excites you the most about how coaches will grow business differently in the next coming years?
Well, AI definitely huge, huge game changer. Yeah. So it's getting, really being super clear on who you serve and what you're offering. I talk to a lot of people who are like, well, I have like 5 target markets. I can help this one, this one, this one, this one. And I'm not saying you can't or that you shouldn't. What I would say is pick one. I always say to people, pick one to start, perfect your marketing around that. Once you reach a brick wall with that one, take another audience on. There's no reason to say that you can't have multiple audiences, but you've got to start with one. So that doesn't answer your question. What do I see for the future of coaching? First of all, it's a growing industry. It's a wonderful industry to be in. I know, like in my space, so I'm a coach that coaches coaches, right? And there's a ton of us. I have a lot of competition. So my messaging has to really stand out. And I teach coaches how to stand out, right? So there's automation tools, but you don't want to just rely on that. You've got to have a human touch as well. So, yes, AI and chat and all those things are going to help your business, they can enhance it. But you have to also be authentic. You have to show up. You have to, like, you know, see something about somebody and comment on that. You really have to get personal with people. And that is not something that you want to rely on AI or any of those tools to do for you. So the future of coaching to me is still being an authentic person, an authentic human. We're not robots, right? We are still human and people want to do work with other humans. So
Mhm.
keep that human touch. It's super important. You can enhance your business with all those tools, but don't rely on those.
Yeah, I'm in full agreement with you. I will always say that there is still no replacement for the human to human connection. AI will do a lot of work, but you still, at the end of the day, have to show up.
That's right.
So, Jamie, you expressed a lot of ideas here. If the coach was to take one idea from this episode and apply it, what should it be? I have an idea. Let's hear you.
I bet the word clarity is in your head. Am I right? Yeah. Clarity. Clarity on who you serve, what you're offering, really specifically, not just in theory, just very, very, very specific. You've got to get your foot in the door with somebody and you have to understand what you're taking somebody from and to. So if you just say, I'm offering coaching, as I say, I'll say it again, nobody's buying coaching. That's not what they're buying. They're not going to the yellow pages looking for a coach. They're in pain and they are looking for getting out of pain. And you have to understand that pain in order to speak about it and how you can help somebody. They're not buying hours, they're not buying coaching. So be very, very, very specific about that clarity piece is the most important. That's where we start. Like my program starts with clarity. It's clarity, clients, and consistency. And that's it. Simple.
I love that alliteration. Amazing. Okay, so Jamie, who should reach out to you after listening to this episode? Let's say they're listening and they're saying, "Man, that sounds a lot like me." Who should be reaching out, and where should they find you to be able to do that outreach?
Yeah. So ideally I work with coaches who have either been at this for a little while, but have been struggling. Could be a year, it could be 10 years, could be 4.5 like it was for me. Or the other audience that I serve are people who are just stepping out of corporate. Maybe they've left their job, maybe they've retired, maybe they are looking for greater fulfillment and they want to start an online coaching business. And it's not easy, everybody. It's not easy. So don't think just because you have experience and expertise that you can just step into the space and make it successful. There are things that you need to know that you won't just learn. You'll learn by trial and error, and you can spend years doing that, or you could work with somebody like me to help you step into the space, know what you're coming into, and help you to overcome any of the challenges that you're going to face. I know what those challenges are and I can help you. How they can find me? So real simple. My website is upscaleyourbusiness.com. That's it. Reach out to me there. There's lots of ways to get to me. I'm on LinkedIn as well. I don't know if you want me to spell out my name, but maybe you want to give that to people, or I can do that. But yeah, LinkedIn. My name is Jaimie, Jaimie Skultety. It's spelled S as in Sam, Kultety, and you can find me on LinkedIn.
Absolutely. That's how Jaimie and I actually connect through LinkedIn. So that's just a testament to the power of the platform, because LinkedIn at the end of the day is designed exactly for that. So Jaimie, thank you so much for sharing your resources, your website, and all the knowledge that you shared. If you take one thing away, folks, clarity. Clarity is going to make a lot of things easier as far as who you talk to, and your messaging, which at the end of the day is how we're communicating. So absolutely, if you need clear messaging, first look for clarity. Okay, so if you like stories like this, well, first off, if you like hearing from Jaimie, please reach out to her. She shared her resources. But if you like stories like this from other people that are driving and pushing the envelope for business growth, be sure to tune into the Jump 5 Labs podcast for more. My name is Jay. Thanks so much. We'll talk again soon.